Good day, good day, everyone. Again, welcome to our test drill lecture on the subject crop protection naman. Sana nag enjoy kayo sa pagre-review ng mga concepts na pinapresent ko dito sa YouTube channel. More to come, so please do follow my channel and subscribe and click the notification bell para kapag may bago tayong lectures ay agad-agad nabubuksan nyo and napapanood. So I hope nakakapagbigay ako ng value sa inyo and I am praying that you will be successful in getting that license soon. Okay? So simulan natin with question number 1. Which among the following is not a type of root feeding nematodes? So again, what we're looking for is something that is not. Okay? So hindi part or hindi type ng isang root-feeding nematode. Do we term that as endoparasite, ectoparasite, semi-ecto or semi-endoparasite, or necrotrophic parasite? So, to answer this question, we need first to understand what are root-feeding nematodes, diba? Well, root-feeding nematodes, as the name suggests, they are nematodes. So, tiny microscopic earth worm-like organisms sila na ang pinaka-purpose nila is to feed on plant roots. Kaya nga root feeding. So, they can cause significant damage to your crops. They can affect yung growth and yield ng crops natin. These nematodes are generally categorized, so basically they are categorized on how they interact with plant roots. And ito yung mga classifications nila na nasa choices, titignan natin kung alin dun sa mga choices ang wala. So first off, they are classified, root-feeding nematodes are classified as endoparasites. So ibig sabihin, endo, meaning internal, with the word en, so parang ang sa akin yan, pag i-memorize ko yan, endo, in, so inside, these nematodes, they enter the plant root. So the endoparasite, pumapasok sila, kung ito yung root ng halaman, this yellow portion here, pumapasok sila dyan, and doon sila kumakain, doon sila namumuhay. So they feed from within. Example of an endoparasite is your Melidogoine incognita or yung ating root knot nematode. Okay? Ang ecto naman, so kabaliktaran ng endo, kung ang endo ay sa loob ng roots, ang ecto naman, nasa labas lang sila. So they feed from outside of the roots. So nasa soil sila, kumbaga kanilang tinitip-tipingan lang. Ito, kumbaga ini-scrape off lang nila yung surface ng roots natin. Ganun yung way nila ng pagkain. So these nematodes, they feed from outside of the roots, they remain in the soil, and they use stylet, yung parang needle-like structure, para i-puncture yung root cells and makakain. Isa sa mga example ng ating ectoparasitic na nematode is yung ating dagger nematodes or yung mga Siphinemas natin. Okay? Ang semi-ecto and semi-endo naman, yan yung nematodes na pwedeng manirahan sa loob ng roots and pwedeng manirahan sa labas ng root system. Okay? So partially, they can feed on the surface of the root and partially, they can also go inside the root and live there. So they exhibit both yung characteristic ng endo and ectoparasites. So example nito is yung mga lesion nematodes natin or yung mga pratylenchus na nematodes natin. How about necrotrophic parasites? What are those, di ba? So necrotrophic parasites, these are not related to the concept of root-feeding nematodes in a traditional sense. Pag sinabi mong ang parasite or yung pathogen natin is necrotrophic, ang ginagawa nila, they kill the host tissue first and then they feed on the dead material. So yun, kaya sila necrotrophic kasi ang ginagawa nila, pinapatay muna nila yung tissue before they are consuming it. So this behavior is less common in nematodes but more common in in certain fungi and bacteria. Kasi mostly ang ating nematode, they live on plant roots that are living. Okay? So given that, A, B, and C, yan ay example ng ating root-feeding nematodes except letter D. So letter D is the correct answer because what we're looking for is the type of nematode that is not a type of root-feeding nematode. Next question. Which is not included in Koch's postulate? Association, isolation, inoculation, or colonization? So ano ba kasi ang Koch's postulate? Koch's postulate, these are statements that guides us to understand the link kung yung specific pathogen ba na iniimbestigahan natin ay siya talaga yung nag-cause ng disease. Yun yung Koch's postulate. So ano yung apat na Koch's postulate? So number one, the microorganism must be found in abundance in all organisms suffering from the disease but should not be found in healthy ones. So dapat daw yung ayong pathogen makikita siya sa mga organism na may sakit, pero sa mga healthy ones hindi natin siya makikita. So ang tawag sa postulate na yun, that's postulate 1, that's the postulate of association. So association yan. Okay? Yung number 2 naman, the microorganism must be isolated from a diseased organism and grown in a pure culture. So dapat daw yung microorganism natin, kukunin natin siya ngayon sa diseased organism and pwede siyang ma-isolate. So that's the term, ma-isolate into a pure culture. So the second one is called the postulate of isolation. Now, postulate 3 states that the cultured microorganism or yung microorganism na in-isolate natin should cause disease when introduced into a healthy organism. So, kukunin natin yan, we are going to inoculate it to another healthy organism. So, that's the third postulate, the postulate of inoculation. And then, kapag nagkasakit na daw yung organism na yon, dapat yung microorganism na nandun sa halaman na nilagyan natin ng sakit can be re-isolated. So, kumbaga, kapag inulit natin yung steps, same na pathogen yung makukuha natin so that the disease experimental host and identify as being identical to the original specific causative agent. Para ma-ensure natin na parehas yung initial na causative agent na na-observe natin sa simula and yung ating na-isolate and na-inoculate. So ang tawag sa sa postulate number 4 is the postulate of re-isolation. Okay? So sa madaling salita, so that's number 1. Dapat makikita siya dapat yung ating pathogen makikita sa may sakit na halaman, pero hindi sa walang sakit. So sa malang sakit, dapat di siya makikita, and sa may sakit, dun siya makikita. That's association. Number 2, dapat pwede siyang ma-isolate. So we can isolate now. Yung sakit na nakuha natin dyan, pwede nating i-grow into a pure culture. So that's isolation. And then we will inoculate it. So kapag nakuha na natin yung na-isolate ng mga pathogen dyan, ilalagay natin sa healthy na halaman, dapat yung halaman na to ay magkakaroon ng sakit. So that's inoculation. And we are going to re-isolate it. So gagawin natin itong step dito. Gagawin natin yung step here sa step dito to make sure na dapat nagmamatch yung pathogen mo dyan and yung pathogen mo dito. So given that, alin sa mga postulates ang hindi ko na-discuss between A, B, C, and D, it is the principle of or the term colonization. Now, ang colonization, very important term din yan, but it refers to the establishment and growth of a microorganism within a host. Pag sinabi natin that the pathogen already colonized our host, it means na-establish na siya, lumaki na siya doon sa host, and therefore, may sakit na yung ating host because of this colonization. So it is an important concept, but it is not part of our Koch's postulate. Next question. A characteristic of fungi: eukaryotic, prokaryotic, chlorophyll-bearing, or none of the above. So what best characterize your fungi? The answer here is that your fungi is eukaryotic. So let's discuss. Ano pa kasi ang characteristic ng isang fungi? Unang-una, ang fungi natin, these are composed of eukaryotic cells. So ano ba ibig sabihin ng eukaryotic cells? Opposite siya sa prokaryotic. Ang prokaryotic is walang true nucleus and wala din siyang cell membrane. Ang eukaryotic, may membrane-bound structure siya that houses your nucleus that contains the genetic material. Ang ating eukaryotic cells, they contain various organelles din sa loob nila, such as yung mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, and Golgi apparatus, which performs specific functions within your cell. Okay, so again, eukaryotic is opposite to your prokaryotic. Primarily, ang characteristic ng isang eukaryotic cell is that mayroon siyang true nucleus and membrane-bound yung mga cells na to at may mga organelles dun sa loob ng membranes na to. Pangalawang, very important characteristic ng isang fungi is the presence of mycelium. So mycelium, yan yung structures ng fungi na kumbaga para siyang thread-like structure na ang pinaka-purpose niya is to efficiently absorb nutrients from their environment. So kumbaga sa halaman, mycelium, kung sa halaman, roots, yung way nila to absorb nutrients from the soil, ang mga fungi naman, they absorb through the use of mycelium. Pangatlong characteristic ng fungi na very important is that they reproduce through spores. So ang reproductive structure po ng ating fungi ay hindi seed, but rather spores. So dumadami sila, they are sexually or asexually reproduced through the spores. And itong mga spores na to, they are specialized structures, okay, na reason kung bakit dumadami ang ating mga fungi. Okay? O bakit prokaryotic hindi tamang sagot? Kasi prokaryotic ay opposite ng eukaryotic. Ang prokaryotic, yan yung mga organisms na wala silang true nucleus and hindi sila membrane bound. So kumbaga, yung genetic material nila is nagfo-float lang doon sa kanilang cytoplasm. So mostly ang mga prokaryotic organisms natin are bacteria and archaea. Chlorophyll bearing. Ang fungi ba natin may chlorophyll? Wala po. Okay? So ang fungi natin ay hindi halaman. Wala siyang chlorophyll. So ibig sabihin yan, our fungi is not autotrophic. They do not produce their own food, but rather they are heterotrophic, meaning they obtain their nutrients from organic sources such as decomposing plant and animal material. So kaya very important as a fungi na basically parang sinasabi natin dito, ang mga fungi natin ay kumakain pala gamit yung kanilang mycelium. Kasi they cannot convert their own foods as compared to the plant. Kasi di ba ang plant pwede silang gumawa, magluto ng sarili nilang pagkain due to the presence of chlorophyll. Kasi nako-convert nila yung light in combination with other molecules that would give them the food that they need. Pero ang fungi, hindi po nila nagagawa yon. So therefore, prokaryotic is wrong, chlorophyll bearing is wrong, and of course, none of the above is also wrong. How about for this question? A fungal mycelium appearing on a rotten fruit is an example of what? Is it an example of symptom, sign, pathogen, or disease? So we need to understand the question. Yung pinakauna, we need to comprehend it. We are looking for this particular situation. Ano yung situation na yun? A mycelium, a fungal mycelium, appears on a rotten fruit. Ano ang tawag doon? So first, unahin natin. Is it called a pathogen? Well, A pathogen is an organism that causes a disease in another organism, such as your fungi. So at some point, parang partly true kasi yung fungal mycelium is a part of a fungi. However, in this context, ang hinahanap natin dito is not the fungi itself. Kung fungi lang yan, then that could be your pathogen. But rather, yung structure niya, which is a fungal mycelium. So therefore, even though malapit-lapit na, pathogen is not correct. Kasi a pathogen is an organism that causes a disease. Whereas yung question natin, ang tinatanong niya is yung fungal mycelium. So a structure of your fungi appearing on rotten fruit. How about disease? So ang disease is a condition resulting from the interaction between yung pathogen mo and yung host. Well, it is often characterized by two things. Yung disease is characterized by symptoms and signs. So symptoms of the disease and signs of the disease. So yung ating rotten fruit, yeah, they can be considered as a disease or rot due to the presence of some particular fungus. Pero again, very specific yung question. It is looking for this situation kung saan you can see a fungal mycelium appearing on a rotten fruit. So you're not just basically describing a disease, but it is describing a specific situation kung saan the fungal mycelium is appearing or it can be seen on a rotten fruit, therefore disease is the wrong answer. So we are now left with two options. Is it symptom or sign? So kailangan nating i-differentiate. Ano pa kasi ang sign and ano pa kasi ang symptom? So unahin natin, what is a symptom? Symptom is basically yan yung visible effect ng pathogen doon sa halaman. So ito yun, the other way of looking at it is that a symptom is how does your plant react to this pathogen? So yung reaction niya, yung response ni plant mo sa disease na to, then that will be your symptom. So for example, kanina, yung pagkarat ng fruit is a symptom. Yung spots na nakikita natin sa dahon ng ating halaman is a symptom. Kapag nakakita ka ng parang tumors or mga galls na lumalaki sa halaman, that's a symptom. So ito ay manifestation ng halaman kasi may pathogen na sa kanya. So mostly yung mga symptoms natin, nakikita yan, visible yan sa ating naked eye. How about signs? What are signs naman? Signs refers to the actual physical evidence na nandun nga yung pathogen. So yung actual physical evidence na nandun nga yung pathogen, like for example, bacterial ooze. So kapag nakakita tayo ng ganyan, yan ay ooze na galing sa bacteria. So we can confirm na dahil may ooze na galing sa bacteria, itong halaman na to, this plant now is infected by a bacterial pathogen. So some other examples is the presence of bacterial colonies. Kapag sinubject natin siya into a microscope, would be the presence of spores and the presence of fungal mycelium. So therefore, given the difference between signs and symptom at ang tinatanong is the situation kung saan nakakakita tayo ng mycelium doon sa isang rotten fruit, ang tawag natin dyan is a sign. Kapag ang sinabi lang niya is yung rottening of fruit, then symptom lang. Pero naging specific siya sa tanong. Ang tinatanong niya is, kapag nakakita ka daw ng fungal mycelium sa isang fruit na nabubulok, ano daw ang tawag doon? Ang tawag doon sign. Kasi yung fungal mycelium, yan ay isang direct evidence na mayroong fungi sa ating halaman. Last question. Ito daw ay isang fungal structure. So it's a part of your fungi that is used to attach the fungi to the host. So yun yung gamit ng structure na to ay para lang maidikit ng fungi yung sarili niya doon sa halaman. Ano kayang tawag doon? Penetration peg, germ tube, hostorium, or aprisorium. So para maintindihan natin yan, let's look at the different structures of your fungi as it attaches itself to its host. So yung ating spore, yung spore ng fungi, so yan yung parang seed ng fungi, Naglalabas yan ng primary outgrowth, and ang tawag natin sa outgrowth na yon is yung germ tube. So ito, this one, this structure emerges from your spore after the spore germinated. So ito'y lumalaki papunta doon sa host. So yung direction ng germ tube is papunta doon sa ating host, and it begins now to grow other structures such as yung ating penetration peg, appressorium, hypha. So yan yung pinaka-purpose ng germ tube. Kumbaga yan yung primary outgrowth ng sperm, and from the germ tube diyan na lumalaki, diyan na rin nabubuo yung mga different structures ng fungi na kakailanganin niya to infect the plants. How about the penetration peg? What is that? Yung penetration peg naman, yan ay isang structure ng fungi na ang pinaka-main na purpose niya, again by its name, is to penetrate the plant. Okay? So it helps your fungi to invade the host tissue. So yung penetration tube na yan yung papasok sa loob ng ating host. Okay? And from this from the penetration peg, tumutubo din diyan yung mga different structures like your invasive hypha, and most importantly yung haustorium. Ano yung haustorium? Yan yung structure sa fungi na sumusuksok kumbaga doon sa mismong cell ng halaman. So ito talaga yung kumakain. Ito talaga yung umi-inject, yung sumisiksik mismo doon sa cell ng halaman. Kaya naman ito yung structure ng haustorium is kumbaga parang yan yung pinakabunganga ng fungi mo na kumakain ng nutrients na galing sa halaman. So that's your haustorium. Ano to? Appressorium. Ano yung purpose niyan, sir? Para naman siyang kwan lang. Nakadikit lang siya doon sa labas ng ating halaman. Di ba? Well, yes. Tama naman yung observation natin. Nakadikit lang siya sa labas ng structure ng halaman. Pero ang pinaka-purpose ng appressorium is to securely attach the fungi to its host. Okay? So, kung makapansin mo, medyo swollen siya kasi yung swell na to will now exert a form of pressure doon sa surface ng host para firmly nakadikit lang yung fungi na to doon sa host at hindi siya malaglag, maihangin, etc. So, given this, anong tawag doon sa structure the fungal structure that allows the fungi to attach itself to the host surface? It is appressorium.